Dave Cunningham. Pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you, Niall, for asking me to MC the night for you. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and thanks so much to Stephen and Katherine for coming down, and for you all for showing up here. Maybe seeing as this is an important night, and this is an important place for Galway down through the years, it might be just a quick, mightn't be any harm for me to say one or two words in Irish, even though the last time I did that I got slagged by everybody else, particularly the ex-president of NUIG for how poor my Irish was. But anyway, tá an ar láthar not lá speisialta do Niall agus a cóide agus lá starú de muintir na Gaillimh I Mothuram. So I'm happy to be here just on a historic day for Niall in his journey, and also for, I believe, the people of Galway, just to mark this occasion. It's really an honour to be here. So for me, I'm a friend of Niall just about a year or so now. I'm no political expert. I teach a bit of yoga. I do a few different businesses. I am certainly not a political expert, as I say, but I think I can recognise good qualities in people, and I recognise that pretty much straight away with Niall. And I think it's just really refreshing to have people who are very talented, very passionate, and willing to give their time to serve the community and to really make this place better for me, for you, for my kids, for the future, and for us all. So without further ado, I'll hand you over and introduce Senator Katherine Zappone, who is a member of Shanadairn. As you'll know, you'll all know her as a co-founder of An Cosán, and also just the CEO of the National Women's Council of Ireland. But I suppose we all know her of late as being the recipient, or she should be the recipient of the Romantic Gesture of the Year award for her beautiful touch on when things came through for everybody on with the Yes Equality campaign. So with that, I'll hand you over, and Katherine, I'll leave you to it.
Do you want to? Great, thank you. Will I take it? Thank you. Or, here, I'll come over here. Here, maybe it's easier over here, okay. Thank you so much, Dave. And it's fantastic to be here. And I am delighted to have taken the journey from Dublin to support and to be part of launching Niall's campaign. And I have to say now, I wouldn't necessarily take that journey for everyone. And that, seriously, and that just to begin with that, to say what high esteem I hold Mr. Niall O'Toole in. So I'm here to help him kick off his campaign, because I'm saying yes to Niall O'Toole. So why is that? Well, and to be honest, I don't know him that long, but the length of time that we have gotten to know each other, it's been exceptionally impressive to me how he has done a number of things. And first of all, I suppose especially I know of him because of the way he ran the Yes Equality campaign here in Galway. I also want to say yes to Niall's campaign because of the way he discusses ideas. In fact, I was having a conversation with a couple of people today and said, you know, I was reminded, had happened to have the opportunity to travel in Cuba a few years ago. And at the time, anyhow, there were lots of billboards where they had quotes from Fidel. And there was one particular quote that I was really impressed with, and he said, "Ideas are our arms." This guy has a lot of arms. He's got an arsenal, so. And especially how he has discussed lots of his, I think, very innovative and creative ways of thinking about further and higher education, adult education, jobs, small businesses, how to encourage an entrepreneurial spirit and action, especially within young people, and yes to his commitment and his passion, and by the way, yes to his youth. Yes to your youth, Niall. And we need more young people who are willing to step forward at your stage in your life in order to bring a new type of politics and a new vision to the Dáil, where Stephen resides. So he knows a whole lot more about that than either of us yet, I hope. But this is, in fact, the Irish Year of Yes. It's the Irish Year of Yes. But what happened? Well, in the Irish Year of Yes, I think what happened is that we set off a tidal wave of joy that will impact and influence all the generations to come. Not just in Ireland, but also to many other countries and continents, and not just LGBT people, but other equality movements and citizens and people who care. How did it happen, though, to get that kind of yes? That's of such cultural and political and economic significance. Well, you need stamina, passion, commitment, good looks, and he has all of them, actually, which is what he did here with you here in Galway. And you know, 13 years ago when Anne-Louise Gilligan, my spouse, and I took the Irish state to court because they wouldn't support our marriage, that was 13 years ago. And so what was court, advocacy, setting up organizations, telling our stories, raising money, and working with people across party and none. And that's the kind of thing, much of which I saw Niall lead here in Galway, many of those different aspects in order to bring about such significant change. And such significant change, unfortunately, can often take a long time. And so again, it's good that he's young, isn't it? I can remember our solicitor saying just, well, it's probably going to take a couple years, Katherine, anyhow, to get that kind of change. And certainly, as I said, that's a lot of what Niall has demonstrated. And again, I think what he demonstrates too is just reflective in a couple of, just one or two things I thought about stories of that period, just recent period, which has just been so amazing how, what it means and why it is so significant is because it means something to so many people of different backgrounds. Recently I was in the kitchen of one of the biggest homes in Dublin, one of the wealthiest people, and she was telling me a story of how she managed to convince her gardener to go and vote yes. And then about a month before that, I was in Jobstown, where I'd done a lot of work in West Tala over the years. And the signs on the homes were no to water charges and we won't pay. And they wanted to say yes. And then one afternoon, I called to the doorstep of a family in Rathfarm. Actually, it was early evening. And they were just together. They came to the door together. And it was the husband and the mother and the father and a young trans man who was their son in the middle and wanting to say how much this meant to all of them. So, I mean, it's incredible. We all have our stories, and that is what some of the meaning of what we did. And so if this guy led that resounding yes here, then imagine what he can do if he could get into the Dáil. Just to conclude, a little bit on a vision for Ireland now that I've been thinking about, especially in light of these recent times. And I suppose, especially too, if we, and a lot of us talk about now that we're living in a republic of equals, a republic of love, a republic of freedom. What does that vision have to do with, especially that can be put forward by independents, because we may be in the best position to usher that in, and I think it has something to do with this. A political movement that insists on the equality of everyone, that ensures all of us have a fair chance to flourish, that resists any special treatment for the powerful, and that knows how to get things done so that we have communities that are safe and vibrant and healthy places for us to raise the next generation. And you know what? This guy can do it, and he can help us do it if he gets into the Dáil. So I'm so delighted to be able to support him as he kicks off this campaign in beautiful Galway evening today. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So next I'll hand over to Stephen Donnelly, who you'll know as a TD and as a colleague of Niall, and will know Niall a lot longer than a lot of us here, and have seen him do his wonders. So I'll leave the next word to Stephen.
Evening. Thank you very much. I'm kind of blown away by the vista. I remember, I think it was probably sixth year in school, my English teacher beating a phrase into me called pathetic fallacy. And whenever, my wife, her degree is in philosophy and English, and mine is in mechanical engineering, so she believes, probably quite rightly, that I'm a Neanderthal. And so when I desperately need to sound better educated and better read than I am, I try and get pathetic fallacy into the sentence. And what it means is that the weather is in tune with the mood, you know? So Shakespeare, it's always storms because everybody's killing each other the whole time, and it really it fits tonight, because to do what Niall is doing tonight is madness, and it is brave, and it is profoundly important. That people like Niall do this, and that people like you stand up with him. I remember when I ran 4.5 years ago, I was thanking a friend of mine for all the help he was giving me. He was working weekends, he was working evenings, you know, and I said, look, thanks. And he actually got really annoyed with me. And he said, I'm not doing this for you, idiot. I'm doing it because I believe in the same thing that you believe in. You happen to be the person who has stood up to say, well, look, I'm going to try and get in there, and I'm going to try and make whatever difference I can. And he said for him, he was the guy standing up saying, we're going to try and get you in there. And so anyone standing up on their own really can do nothing. There's various people around the country do it from time to time, and they get about 25 votes. And for me, it was the first week in January in 2011, and I decided I was going to run, and I had some friends came over, and we all got very excited, and then they left. They were heading back to England and the US. And I was sitting in the kitchen on my own with a laptop, with an election in about 6 weeks, with very little chance of getting elected. As a friend of mine, Jesse, he ran Toledo, Ohio for Obama. I told him I was going to run, and he said, Stephen, you have no money, you have no organization, you have no manifesto, you have no volunteers, you have no profile, you have no hair. Statistically, it is impossible for you to get elected, so let's figure out how to get you elected. And this is absolutely true. I was sitting at the table, slightly freaked out, because I realized that my entire campaign was me and a laptop. And my phone rang, and it was Niall. And Niall and I had worked together a few years previously. We'd done a piece of work in Qatar, in the Middle East together. And I'd been very impressed by him. And he said, I hear you're running. I hadn't spoken to Niall in probably 2 or 3 years. I said, yeah. He said, well, look, I was in East Africa figuring out how to build power turbines. And I saw what was going on in Ireland. So I decided I'd come home. So Niall had no idea what he was going to do. He just knew that he wanted to do something in response to what happened in 2008, leading into the general election in 2011. And he got home, and he heard that this guy who he had worked with was going to run. And I said, oh, well, how much time can you give me? And he said, all of it. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, when can we meet? He said, 90 minutes. And we did. And Niall then said, I'd been out of the country for about a decade, so I had no networks. I didn't know who to talk to. And Niall said, well, I know lots of people to talk to. And he put me on to various people, and one of them said, yeah, I'll help. And then another one said, yeah, I'll do your policy. And another one said, I know about this thing called Twitter. And of course, at the time, Idiot Boy was going, I've never heard of Twitter, but all right, does it help? And it all came from Niall. And Niall and a small group of people worked 70, 80 hours a week. I don't mean to freak anybody out here. You don't have to do this, except Maria. She's already signed up. She does have to do it. And we ran a campaign. Now, I knew a few people related to politics. I knew no politicians. And anyone I knew who was kind of on the periphery of politics said, you seem like a very earnest young man. It's a great thing about politics. In your mid-30s, you were able to be a young man. But they said, you cannot get elected. The system is set up to stop people like you getting in. The people in charge have made all the rules to protect themselves. And I said, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm gonna try. And Niall worked probably 100 hours a week, including at the time doing things like feeding my 1-year-old and my 1-month-old in the house, right? And we worked and we knocked on doors, and for my campaign, I was very lucky to get on Vincent Browne once, and I got on the front line once. And a lot of people put it down to that. They put it down to this media campaign. We didn't have a media campaign. We got 2 phone calls and said, yes, Stephen will go on the television. What got me elected was Niall, because Niall put a team together that knocked on 16,500 doors all over Wicklow. The constituency of Wicklow and East Carlow is huge. And we knocked on doors in driving January rain. And it was hard. It was physically hard. It was emotionally hard. There was one canvass we did, and door after door after door, I personally was knocking on these doors and just got talking to people whose lives were being destroyed by what was going on. And it was tough. All sorts of different things happening to them. And I remember going back into the car soaked and freezing in the dark, with tears just rolling down my face, and I had just a cold fury in me that this would ever be allowed to happen to these good people. That political cowardice and political weakness and a lack of technical competence and all of those things would ever be allowed to happen to the men, women and children of Ireland. And that sort of energized you. And then through Niall, we ended up with about 150 people going out all over Wicklow and East Carlow every night. And we were waiting for the Greens to walk out of government. So every morning, we'd have our sort of 7:30 meeting and say, has Eamon Ryan gone yet? I would say, no. We'd say, okay, cool, get everybody out in the streets. And in the end, I got elected. It was a 5-seater. And I got elected on the 19th count, something like that. Niall actually didn't go to the count. Niall did all the work and then disappeared up the mountains, right? And I got elected by 57 votes. So every single volunteer, every tweet, every coffee morning that people held, every time somebody spoke to their friends and said, there's this mad baldy chap who's trying to get elected, but we kind of like him, help him. Everything mattered. There was one of our canvassers spoke to this couple who said, oh yeah, we've heard of Stephen, we're going to vote for him. Their son was Special Forces in Papua New Guinea and had heard, I presume on the internet or through had heard what I was doing, liked what I was doing, and got on to his parents, presumably on some Special Forces phone. And he couldn't vote, but he got down to his parents and said, I want you both to vote for this guy. So what Niall is trying to do, hopefully with the support of the people in this room, is profoundly important. And it can work, even though the odds are stacked against individuals or new parties or any of that stuff. All the odds are stacked against it. The one thing that can overcome all of that, and did in our case back in 2011, was a sufficient number of people standing up and saying, actually, we want something different. I was going to say better, but that would be an extraordinarily egotistical thing to say. I don't mean that, right? But in Niall's case, better, right? We want something different. We want change. The status quo and more of the same simply isn't enough. Now, I ran in response to the crisis. I had a background in IMF-type stuff, and I had a pretty good idea. A lot of friends of mine have lived through IMF bailouts in Latin America and parts of Africa. So I had a pretty good idea about how badly it was going to hurt, and about some of the really bad decisions that were probably going to get made, because they get made all the time. And I decided, look, I am going to serve my country, right? We all do it. People are doing it in community centres and school and primary care centres and businesses every day, right? We all, I think, love this wonderful, mad, wet rock we live on, right? And we are an extraordinary and brilliant people. And it's worth fighting for. So I stood up and I said, well, I'm gonna serve my country. I'm gonna do what I can. Now, the crisis, whilst the effects are still being felt, is kind of gone. The Troika's gone, and I decided to stay in politics rather than go back to the private sector. I decided after 4.5 years, well, I decided a while ago, but I decided to stay in for this reason. For the country to become what it can and realize all of the wonderful things Katherine has just been talking about, that moment on the day of the referendum count, something beautiful happened in this country. It felt to me like a new generation standing up and saying, you know what, we're moving on now. We're evolving, we're modernizing, we're liberalizing, we're moving on. And it was a beautiful democratic moment where the people of Ireland said, you know what, let's embrace this. This is important. And for me, it was a wonderful moment because in politics, you can get frustrated a lot, right? I describe it sometimes as going down to the sea and going down to the beach and screaming at the sea sometimes. But then these amazing moments of democracy happen and things change. And it is beautiful to be a part of it, you know, be it canvassing or be it in the Oireachtas or whatever it is. Now, the current political system has some wonderful people in it. It really does. It's got wonderful people in all of the parties. But it isn't going to change. It's locked in. It's stuck. It's done some stuff well. It's done some stuff badly. But that zeitgeist, that esprit de corps that the yes referendum captured, that said, actually, do you know what? Politics can be an amazing force for change. We need that to blossom and flourish and strengthen and grow in the Oireachtas, in local government, in every community centre, in civil society. And that is going to require people like Niall getting elected. That's what it's going to require. There are brilliant people in some of the parties. Some of them I consider good friends of mine. And they're just shut down. They're not allowed to speak. They stay quiet. They get very frustrated about what they want to achieve and what they stand for. And it just needs more of them. There's almost, this might sound a little melodramatic, but there's almost an ideological war going on for the future of Ireland, right? Is it going to be an individualistic society, you know, where people who do well get a lot of returns themselves, and, you know, if you don't do so well, well, you know, tough. You know, is that, because that's, to me, that's where the country's going right now. You know, or can we go somewhere much better? And to me, what's required is understanding that sound economics and support for enterprise and good jobs and secure jobs on the one hand, and a radically better social vision on the other hand, are opposite sides of the same coin. They must happen together. And unfortunately in politics, I'm deemed as a right-wing economist all the time. First of all, I'm not an economist. And second, I'm not right-wing. But I am pro-enterprise, and I am definitely pro-economic responsibility, right? And therefore, well, you must be anti-community, right? And it's a nonsense, but it's the accepted wisdom of politics in this country. And all of the parties have their strengths, and all of them have their weaknesses. But I've been sitting in the same room as them for the last 5 years, and none of them, I believe, have a credible offering, which is economic competence, pro-enterprise on the one hand, and a radically better social vision, championing equality, championing all of those wonderful things we've just seen in this country in the last few weeks. And Niall does, right? And to an extent, it's a numbers game. The more people we can get into those two rooms, the Senate and the Dáil, and the more people we can get elected locally, the more the ship will turn in a better direction. And it takes time, right? Large corporates take 5, 6, 7 years to change their culture. These things don't happen overnight. There is no white knight who's going to come in and change it. It takes an awful lot of hard work, and it takes an awful lot of time. So what Niall is doing this evening is mad and brave and brilliant, because it requires people like Niall to stand up and say, I'm going to serve my country, I want to serve my country, I want to represent the people of Galway. And critically, it requires people like you not to stand behind him, but to stand beside him and say, so do we. He may be the guy that we're sticking up on the posters, which by the way is a deeply weird thing for anyone to ever have to experience. Driving along at night, you're exhausted, and it's just poster after poster after poster of yourself going. Anyone who signs up for that is slightly cracked, right? But it does require a team. 57 votes is what got me in. Every single person in this room, if they want to, can get Niall more than 57 votes. And had one person at one of our meetings decided, do you know what, I really do, I like it, but I'm busy, or my kids are wrecking my head, or all the good normal reasons we all have, if one of them had decided not to stand up, I wouldn't have got elected. So I'm doing the hard sell. It's good cop, bad cop, right? So just remember that, 57 votes. And I hope that you all like what you hear from Niall and like Niall and would like to see Niall involved and would like to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Thank you.
Thanks, Katherine and Stephen and Dave, for such a kind introduction. And I just want to say it's just so inspiring to see so many people here in the room and such a packed room with great energy here. I think, so thanks for taking the time and just for being open to thinking about a new way of politics. I've taken a kind of a winding route to being here today, launching a political campaign. I grew up here in Galway. My time was fairly evenly split between books in St. Mary's and Gaelic football in St. Michael's. I went to Dublin for college. I did well there. I've always been very driven by wanting to have a positive impact on society and the people around me. And I just kind of always assumed that I would do that through the private sector. I went to work for McKinsey, which is this kind of strategy consultancy, and I just had some incredible experiences there. My very first conference call at McKinsey was with Kofi Annan, Desmond Tutu, and Mary Robinson, and we were helping them to build this organization that helped with global conflict resolution and getting and solving public health problems. I've built up energy and road infrastructure in Africa and all around Europe. I've been involved in national health systems from kind of strategic and financial level right down to working 4 months in a ward for elderly people, trying to get hospitals and social care and ambulance services working better together. And I've just had this kind of incredible experience. And I had never planned to get into politics. I always assumed that it was kind of too closed and a bit dirty, and that someone like me who wanted to kind of rock the boat a bit just couldn't make a difference. But then when the bailout happened, and Ireland kind of took on this huge debt that it should have never had to bear, I just felt like I had to do something. I knew I had to do something. And so I came home, I helped get Stephen elected, and I've been involved ever since, and I've been engaged ever since. Recently I had the honour of working with many of you in the room on the S Equality campaign in Galway, and that was just incredible what we achieved together. I mean, now anyone in this country can marry the person they love, and it doesn't matter what that person's gender is anymore. It was just incredible what we did together. I mean, the campaign was so inspiring. Like 200 volunteers came together. We knocked on 45,000 doors. We walked enough miles to get to China. And I think on the day of the results, on May 23rd, we rightly celebrated just a great day for Irish democracy. And I think that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in this country, and there's many days like that ahead, and I'm running to make sure that they happen. I think this republic was kind of founded on the idea that government should pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation equally. That's what was written into the proclamation. And I think that's not a vision of a kind of minimalist government that just focuses on serving narrow interests or tries to make Ireland the best small country in the world to do business in. I mean, I desperately want to see an Ireland where we have a strong, united society supported by a strong economy, and not the other way around, where we have a strong economy supported by a weak, divided society. And as Stephen outlined, we don't need to sacrifice economic competence to have a positive, inclusive society. And I think that by building a movement around social democracy, we can have one of the greatest societies in the world here at home. And imagine if we had the public services of the Scandinavians, where everyone can live a healthy life, where we invest in community, so everyone belongs to, is cherished in their communities. And if we have a thriving economy that supports all that, I mean, that's the kind of Ireland that I want to see built. And I think that we have everything in Ireland. We have the talent, we have the creativity, and we have the work ethic to make it happen. And so why can't we do that? And I think starting here tonight, I want to build that movement with you in Galway. I think it needs to be broader than just getting people elected. It has to be about community. It has to be about getting issues national and locally moving, and it has to also be about politics. So I mean, for community, let's get together, let's get involved in issues that make a concrete difference in our community, throw our weight behind them. Let's pick out issues that we care about nationally and locally and make a difference to them, and throw the same kind of energy into them that we did in the Yes campaign. And then let's go and find good people who represent these types of values and get them elected into the Dáil, into the Seanad, into local authorities and into Europe. I'm very proud to put myself forward to run in Galway West, and I'd be honoured to represent you in Dáil Éireann. It's going to take a massive effort to make that happen. I mean, we have 100,000 voters that we need to talk to. To make that happen. If we play by the rule books of kind of normal campaigns, it's not going to happen. I mean, if we had the same kind of 10-minute chat with every single person, it would take about 10 years, and we have about 4 months. So I really, like, for this to happen, we need your support. We'll be running a great campaign. We're going to be going out door to door. We're going to be holding town hall events all over the constituency. We're going to make unprecedented use of social media to make this happen. And we're going to be having conversations over coffee with friends and family in living rooms all over Galway. So please, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for lending your energy, and thanks. I hope you'll join us.